Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so welcome to the first of two podcasts that cover, well, where Valhalla's been and where we're going. Now, in this episode, I talk about why I retired from marketing and turned to the farm full-time, why I dove into Valhalla in the first place, a little bit of its history, and the 5 disruptive reasons why I invested in a farm to begin with, and why I think maybe you should too, and I think it's a smart thing to do. Now, in this episode, I talk a little bit about memberships and a bunch of different things, but it's something that's part of the Superhero Academy podcast. It's my podcast. My name is Mark-Angelo Coppola. I am the founder of the Superhero Academy and the Superhero Academy podcast, and I'm one of the co-founders of Valhalla. And I can't wait to continue to update you on all the things that we are doing. But before I update you on where we're going and some of the day-to-day that's going on in our reality right now, I figured we should re-upload this podcast to this channel to give you a little sense of what the Valhalla movement and the Valhalla Co-op Farms is all about. So, well, sit back, relax, enjoy. There's going to be the full episode that's coming out, which you're watching right now, and a couple of clips that are going to be going on our channel. And the next episode will also do the same about the future of Valhalla. So, welcome to the Superhero Academy podcast. I'm your host, Mark-Angelo. Hello, superheroes. I'm Mark-Angelo Coppola, and welcome to the Superhero Academy podcast, where my mission is simple: to help make you a better storyteller. Now, I'm still working on my storytelling skills, so I'm getting used to my little intro here, so I'm going to read little pieces of it, but I'm getting there. So whether you're an entrepreneur, influencer, or creator, this show is designed to help mentor you around the nuances of storytelling, identify and capitalize on trends to grow your presence and not suffer from the 21st century plight of the digital cricket. Oh, you know you like that digital cricket sound with a little bit of frog. Featuring a little frog remix, and introduce you to incredible superheroes so you can create waves with your own stories and brand online. That means I bring on really cool guests. End of the day, I'm a geeky attention broker looking to teach while making you laugh and sharing my take on the headlines and developments of this crazy, crazy world. So text me at the number below or DM me at Mark-Angelo Coppola on Instagram or whatever other social media platform you're interested in. You know where the links are, ladies and gentlemen. Now, today, by the way, if somehow you don't know where the links are, they're normally in the description or in the comments down below. Just like look down, probably down, maybe swipe up. I don't know. Somewhere there's a link. Okay. Today we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart. It's really focused around farming and Valhalla, why I created a farm, why I've been investing in a farm. In fact, why I'm even retiring from marketing, and I'm not retiring from storytelling whatsoever, but I'm retiring from marketing and running marketing agencies to actually invest in a farm full time. And the reason I'm doing that, both from the return on investment perspectives, meaning we're going to dive into the financials of that and what that looks like, and ways that I think that there's massive growth in the world of farming and in the world of regenerative agriculture, as well as community. You know, from everything from like running a giant experiment, which is what Valhalla really is, and the name of my farm, as well as membership model, talking about that and scaling generosity. So I'm going to really ad-lib this. It's really meant to go in different directions. It's less about what research I've done. It's more about the research I've done over the last 9 years. So with that said, I've always got my man Kyler behind the scenes. He's here to chime in and ask me a bunch of questions. He doesn't really know all that much about the farm, which is great. Like, he hasn't actually visited the farm yet. So that's going to be, something where we'll definitely dive into. And so I think that's great because it enables him to ask me really good questions about it, right?
100%. I know nothing about running a farm.
Yeah.
Know nothing about the financials of a farm and why someone would put themselves through that heartache, that physical trauma.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as a kid, I used to, chores and I've experienced it. And it is nice, don't get me wrong. Like, it's very humbling. But all joking aside, I'm going to learn as much as I can today and ask you tough questions.
Wow. And water went down the wrong tube. All right. So why? Why start a farm, right? Why, in my good conscience, have I started a farm? Well, here's the thing I'll tell you, right? I'm the kind of guy who loves to talk about the two ROI, the ROI of return on investment and the other ROI of ripple of impact. And I'm going to start with the other ROI, the ripple of impact piece, because that's really why I started the farm. It's really the movement inside of me that led me to get deeply involved in farming, in community building, and building Eco-Village, because that's what we're doing. So that said, this story starts in 2012, April 1st, 2012, which is essentially 9 years ago, when I decided I had just had enough. I had just watched way too many documentaries. I had spent an entire year literally watching documentary after documentary after documentary for 52 weeks straight. And really it had gone on for even a little longer than that by the time I actually walked out onto the farm. And I knew that I had to do something. What I had recognized, what I was learning about, well, not farming, but more so about the world when it comes to storytelling in documentaries, is that they were spending 90 to 95% of the time talking about a problem, literally like sounding the alarm on climate change or peak oil or vanishing of the bees or all the challenges we're facing in overfishing and food and deforestation. I mean, you can make your head spin with how much information you can learn from a documentary. And yet there was so little energy put into the solution. So little of that was talking about the actual solution that we can embody over time. And so, you know, one stat that really shocked me in this one moment, it was in 2011, I was kind of researching and I opened up Google and it was blinking in front of me. I had no idea what I was going to type in. So I start typing in, if everyone lived, and the autocomplete was like the average American, right? Okay, sounds interesting. Click on that. And this research paper that had come out in 2011 was showing the carbon footprint, not the carbon footprint so much as the global footprint of what it would take for everyone to live like the average American if everyone in the world lived like the average American. And what that showed, you know, there was a bunch of different countries, but what it showed for America was that we would need 4.1 planets if everyone were to live like the average American in the planet today. And I was like, well, damn. But I'm Canadian, so I was like, yeah, well, that's bad. But America consumes a ton. I mean, they're the biggest purchaser, they're the biggest economy, all that stuff. There's millions and millions of people there, and they just kind of like buy everything, right? So we're in Canada, like it has to be better than that, right? So I type in average Canadian, and the answer for the average Canadian was 5 planets. Yeah, right? So you start...
Disappointing.
I mean, yes. So you start to kind of think about and feel through the emotion of, well, wait a second, that's me, right? If everyone lived like me, we would need 5 planets to survive. Now, why is Canada worse than America? I think it's because of these numbers are calculated on a per capita basis. And at the end of the day, we still need the same amount of roadways, the same amount of, you know, electricity running from spanning the entire length of our country that is Canada is so massive. And we have much higher heating bills, you know, food being produced and shipped from all over the globe. So there's so many other layers of carbon footprint that fall into why Canadians have such a high standard of living, but also such a high footprint. Right? And I think it was the Global Footprint Network was the name of the study. And I don't know if they've come out with another one since, but those were the numbers in 2011. And I can imagine that today it's only gotten worse. And so in what was essentially a giant fit of a fuck you to the system, a giant kind of feeling incredibly small while watching documentaries, a sense that everything was crumbling, that, you know, we were in some level of doom and gloom and the sky was falling, and that invoking in me a large sense of anxiety, a huge, overwhelming sense that, you know, everything is going to collapse and that my life is going to collapse, systems are going to collapse, ecosystems are going to collapse even more so, and we just can't keep living this way. And so that deeply depressed me, and it put me into a state where either I was going to die, and I say that, you know, not to be dramatic, but really to express how I felt at that time, or I was going to do something about it. And I knew that I couldn't change the world in a single action or a single day or a single moment. But what I could do is dedicate myself to making and taking on a giant experiment. And so I walked out in the middle of a GMO corn and soya field, planted a tree, and declared I'd build a school I wish I could have gone to physically and digitally, and a community I wish I could have grew up in physically and digitally. And that physical component was really what I was focused on, is now known as Valhalla. And it was first started, it was called the Valhalla movement. In fact, when it first started, it was actually called Project Y, right? Because I was running my name of my marketing agency, and my marketing company is called Y Simply Because Media, or WSB Media, because we live in Quebec and I have to not use English words in my title. But that said, Y Simply Because Media. So it was Project Y. It was just me trying to figure out what it took to live more sustainably and what it would take to build a movement. And I had been inspired by a couple of things that are on the ROI, return on investment side of things. And I'm going to get to that a little bit later. But I really want to express to you that I walked out in the middle of this cornfield and I started planting trees and laying around soil and like digging ponds and doing stuff and learning words like permaculture and earthships. And, I had never built anything in my life. I never planted anything in my life. I've never cooked anything in my life. Okay, well, I maybe cooked something in my life, but I knew nothing about food. I knew nothing about growing food. I knew nothing about building. I knew nothing about building community in this way. I knew absolutely nothing. Like, it was worse than knowing nothing because I was a spoiled brat. And maybe I still am, but I was, very much in a fortunate position as kind of a 23-year-old getting involved in a project like this. It took some level of naive thinking that maybe this could change the world. And so I learned about a couple of very interesting ideas. And the first idea was, well, look, we're cutting more trees than we're planting, and that's a huge problem. So why don't I start by planting trees? But I had also learned about other interesting notions like Dunbar's number, for example, which is a study that was done on Native American tribes. I can't remember which specific tribes or whatever it was, but the point is that they were studying the scale of tribes. It's the scale that tribes would get to before that they would start to break down and subdivide into smaller tribes, and what the ideal tribe size was, mainly from the perspective of scaling trust. And that's what the Valhalla movement is about. It's really about scaling trust within ourselves, within our community, within people that we know, and rallying community to build a 150-person eco-village. Now, why 150 people? Well, because Dunbar's number. Dunbar's number was where these tribes would start to break down because they could not trust one another at the scale that they wanted to, because you can only maintain a certain amount of really close, deep connections and relationships, right? There's only so many people you can talk to or relate with or chat with before you start to feel like they're, in a sense, a stranger, or they're outside of your immediate circle in some way, shape, or form. And therefore, you start to operate with everything at arm's length. That's why we need lawyers. That's why we need accountants. That's why we have bank accounts and vaults and, security for all kinds of different things. We can't trust everyone. And it's not because people aren't trustworthy. I think many people are trustworthy, specifically trustworthy within their own circles sometimes, right? Like somebody could be a highway robber but never rob their family because that's their tribe. But we're all living our own experience, and we're all in some level of fight or flight and in some level of consuming because that's the system we grew up in, right? I learned where money came from, for example. That changed my life. I learned that we had more debt than there is money, and yet we're the inventors of money. So how is it possible that we have more debt than money? That doesn't make mathematical sense. In fact, it's a giant game of musical chairs. And so that, coupled with the fact that we were in this growth, ever-growing paradigm of we need to grow, GDP, GDP, GDP. Everything is about scale. Everything is about more, and we never have enough. I wanted to know what it was like to build an experiment where we had enough, where we can scale to this 150-person number, right? And sometimes maybe go a little higher, and as the tribes did, they would get a little bit bigger. Then there would start to be problems over months, years, whatever. Then they would break off into smaller groups and then eventually build back up to that 150 number and continue to grow their little village. So this is an experiment in building a village. That's what the Valhalla movement is. Valhalla is a name derived from Norse mythology. Norse meaning Vikings. If you watched Thor, Marvel movies, or whatever it is, you maybe heard the term Valhalla before, right? It's referring to a great hall in the land of Asgard. The land of Asgard is this kind of mythical land where the Vikings, honorable Vikings, would go in the afterlife. Men and women that fought an honorable life or lived an honorable life or fought an honorable battle or died in war or whatever it is, right? They would go to Valhalla to train for the Battle of Armageddon, essentially to train for the battle of good versus evil. And so that's where we derived the name. Now, the name comes from the fact that we believe it was a really great name to be said in multiple languages all around the globe, and both in French and English as well here in Quebec. That's very important. But it's also, it brings back this kind of sense, this feeling that we were setting sail away from lands that we knew into lands unknown. And I believe, and I think there's, a strong case for the fact that Vikings probably did discover Iceland and Greenland and probably even Canada and North America before the traditional story of what we hear about, the discovery of North America with Christopher Columbus and whatever it is, right? And obviously there was natives here and stuff, so somebody had discovered America before the Western culture, blah, blah, blah. We discovered America, right? But the point is, I think that the Vikings, had a very interesting ethos. And I believe that our farm and the community we're building at our farm is designed to take on this experiment of living a sustainable life, an off-grid life of sorts, while connected to the grid, right? I see Valhalla as this bridge. It's almost like a giant sandboxer, where we get to play in the dirt 20 minutes away from downtown Montreal on an 80-plus acre field, right? GMO corn and soy, like we're talking Monsanto stuff here, and turn that into a 30-home, roughly 150-person community, and turn that into a real-life Eden, a real-life Valhalla. By building a community center at the center, a wellness retreat center, rental, an outdoor kitchen, a bistro, kind of our version of a conscious Starbucks, producing our own food, producing our own community in every single way, producing our own power through solar panels, like having our water could be caught from rainwater and well water, having all of the inputs come from right there. And having all the people that we hire and work with being a part of our community as an integral form of community building. And it comes with the adage of, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a village to build a village. And what I mean by that is, like, if you're going to build a village, you need to find the village. And you need to rally the village around particular ideas and thoughts. And so the core principle when we first launched the Valhalla movement, which is, in 2012, it was literally a field with nothing, a field that was barren. It had nothing growing in it. It was Monsanto, sprayed pesticides, chemicals, whatever, for more years than I would like it to have ever been sprayed by. And we had to deal with that soil and build from that place and that soil and that space to learn the principles of things that we ended up learning, like words that I ended up learning specifically, like permaculture, and now what they call regenerative agriculture, market gardening, all of these things. And so I could go into the definitions of those. I can go into the philosophies of those different components, but it really is that experiment that drove me, right? The existential crisis meets this, like, why don't we do something about it? So I walk out in this field, I plant that tree, and then people just started showing up. In fact, my first ever Instagram post is me in a tractor on the farm. And then soon after, it's me doing a bunch of, helping bottle vinegar that I had made with my father. It was me on the farm planting trees. It was me building a pond or doing all kinds of crazy things. And so even the world into storytelling for me, I think really began with this farm, right? It's the first consistent story that I've been telling for 9 years now and that I've developed over time. And I'm taking this story right now and I'm telling you it in pieces, and I'm kind of trying to break the pattern a little bit to express elements of the vulnerability of what it took for me and so many others to join in. Because when we started the farm, there was nothing. It was flat. And so we went out and dowsed, and dowsing, I did not believe this was working at all, right? It's like we're going up, holding on to two metal sticks and then trying to see when they're going to cross naturally, because the force of nature and water running through veins under the earth would let you know where to dig your well or where to dig a little pond. I I never even heard of that concept, and all of a sudden we're doing it. And I'm walking out there barefoot, and like the soil's all shitty and rocky, and like, it would hurt. It was not fun. But then I went to the garden center. I told them that their website sucked, and I wanted $50,000 worth of trees and clover seeds and a bunch of other stuff, bags of earth, whatever it was, right? And we just started planting. We started doing things, and we started royally messing up a bunch of stuff. Like we ended up having a flood, and we had planted a bunch of lavender, and lavender doesn't like water, but I didn't know that. So we lost hundreds of lavender. We lost a bunch of fruit trees to rotting or all kinds of different challenges. We had all kinds of things lay its way in our path. But to me, this farm is an experiment because I don't really know the outcome, and I'm inventing the outcome alongside you. And I say you because I feel like if you're listening to this, you have something innate inside of you that says you want to be a part of this too. You want community in your life. You want to live in a sustainable way that isn't impacting or taking more than what you're giving. You probably want to eat healthy foods and live a healthy lifestyle. You want to know where your food comes from and recognize and understand the faces of those people. You want to know that even if you eat meat, it's coming from a sustainable way, or eggs, like we have chickens at our farm and we make eggs every single day, or we don't make the eggs, the chickens make the eggs, but we clean them and package them and deliver them to coffee shops and restaurants all over, right? I hand them out to my neighbors. Well, all of those things, you want to know where that comes from. You want to have a connection to nature, to the sacred that is Mother Gaia, if you want to call her that, or Mother Nature, and the feminine that comes with that, but also the kind of the masculine energy of structure and building and creating in a way that to me is a form of art. The way I see it is I'm performing a giant ritual of Google Earth art, a giant like death and rebirth cycle, not only through the seasons and following of the seasons, particularly here very pronounced in Canada, as I don't need to tell you, but also developing this farmland into a very different way of life, a private community where people who are intentionally picked come together with intentional values to make that happen. So what's our core value? Well, we like to call it freedom culture, to empower and encourage all individuals to spread their unique gifts to the world. You see, I believe that rather than to try and say that our farm is about growing specific foods or just even about a farm, I think our farm grows community. And community, in its most empowered form, is a group of individuals like you who are following their bliss, following the passion that lights them up, following the thing that gets them to be fired up and that they're so excited to bring to the world. So whether that be like being a nutritionist or planting herb and medicinal gardens, whether that be because you're an accountant and you really love just dealing with the numbers and helping people out who are doing other things, whether that means you're the type of person who wants to grow food or engineer and install solar panels, or you're the type of person who wants to, I don't know, even if you're a mechanic, we want to scale your passion. And I want to empower and enable the inner entrepreneur inside of you, the inner, freelancer or creator or influencer inside of you that sets you ablaze and sets you on a path of self-reliability and self-sustainability. Because that's what self-sustainability means to me, right? We used to talk about sustainability, community, knowledge, and action. Those are our 4 pillars. And as I learned about sustainability, what I recognized is that sustainability was kind of not sexy. That we needed to shift and change from the idea of sustainability into thriving. And so that's the foundation that created this very podcast, the online school that is Superhero Academy. That's the foundation upon which everything that I am doing today is actually coming to life. It's the place where I go every single week and start telling stories and tell the same story over and over and over again. It's where I learned about storytelling and social media marketing and management, where I started making memes and posting on Instagram and Facebook. Our Facebook page has, 70,000+ followers or whatever it is. Our Instagram, 22,000, our YouTube, 24,000. We have hundreds of videos, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. I don't even know how many videos we have here. right? But there's videos of everything from like going to the Paris climate talks to making Kickstarters that we raised money for to building Earthships. I went down to Ushuaia and made a documentary called Recipe for Change where we build an Earthship on the southern tip of Argentina. We also built one on our farm. I mean, these are videos about growing hemp or installing solar panels, electric bikes, growing loofahs, growing food, interviews, podcasts. I mean, look at some of these old podcasts that I had, with everything from soil biologists to entrepreneurs to, Rob Greenfield, who does amazing things in the world and ate dumpster diving for months or whatever it was. He wore his garbage on him and lived like the average American and wore every piece of garbage that he consumed for 30 days on his body. And he had like these big bags and stuff. I mean, we did all kinds of ways. This project has brought me and many all around the globe, researching and visiting eco-villages, understanding and learning what makes eco-villages fail, what makes farms fail, what about permaculture and how do they make money? How can this actually generate the change that we need to look and feel? And that can't just be from the feel-good story of sustainability. It has to come from thriving. It has to come where the ROI of return on investment and the ROI of ripple of impact actually merge. And so this experiment led to us telling stories, to us making content in many different ways. And so, Valhalla's Instagram is only now starting to reflect elements of what is actually happening at the farm. But for many months, years, time, we started sharing some stories. Like this is, Travis or some other people. We were making memes and creating content. Our logos shifted and changed over time. I mean, there's all kinds of storytelling that we were doing. And this is a picture, of the farm, I think, in the beginning of 2016 season. It was only in 2016 that we actually started to really gain momentum where people were there working full time. In 2015 was the first year where we actually were showing up every single Saturday when I decided that church was kind of every Sunday. So, of course, building a farm should be too. I feel like I can talk forever about this topic. But what I want you to know is that it's also an experiment in scaling generosity and abundance. Growing community and making this all happen, and I'll get again to the ROI of why I think this makes financial sense for people to do and consider. Also, to me, is a form of giving. This feels like I'm giving back. This is my version of spirituality. This is my version of connection. This is my version of doing something that is bigger than me. This is my version of planting a tree that I will never sit in the shade of. My version of building legacy. My version of building something that matters to me. And I think it's the version of many other people who feel like me. And that's why we call it a community. It's not about what I am doing. Just because I started the project doesn't mean it's my project. And much of my pain with this project has been to try and deprogram and convince people, which I no longer do. I just tell people at this point that this really is about we and us. That this community, that all the feelings and experiences, most of what they even see at the farm, most of the things planted at the farm were not planted by me. They were not grown by me. They were not planted by me. Yes, I stewarded elements of it, and I've become really good at managing that and understanding the talents of others, understanding the superpowers of others. That's why I created Superhero Academy, because that was my skill set as a marketer. And more on that in a second. But the point is that I was just there to watch the ecosystem grow. And just like in permaculture, most of what permaculture is based on is about mimicking nature, biomimicry of sorts, right? And what that means is that in nature, things tend to grow with one another symbiotically. Like, for example, tomatoes, asparagus, and basil love to grow together because they also take different nutrients out of the soil. They restore nutrients that each other like. They kind of repel the pests of each other. And they taste really great in an Italian dish. At None Does on Sunday. Kyla likes that one. But there is there is a way that nature has embarked on some level of wisdom. And that wisdom for me is found in some level of connection and continuous working with the land, with the inputs, and with the community around us, the people who drive by and drop off wood chips, the people who are like, hey, do you guys need some extra rock? And they just drop off a bunch of rock, or the type of people who are making me feel like I'm playing a giant game of Settlers of Catan. Because that's kind of what it is. And year after year after year, we've gotten better. I've gotten better at telling stories. I've gotten better at being more humble about what is really happening, how much of it I'm doing and how much of it I'm just witnessing, how much of it is flowing through me and for others. And I have been testing elements and theories of this, building it as a nonprofit foundation at first, then as a co-op, which is one person, one vote, and scaling the farm and doing CSA baskets, which are community-supported agriculture baskets, meaning we grow the food, you pay for the basket for the season, and then every week you get a basket full of all the veggies that are fresh from the farm that week. And I say veggies, but it could also be eggs or other things too. And so this is an experiment that stretches every part of me. It demanded me to understand social media and storytelling, and it demanded me to have in-person presence and be able to speaker. It makes me this storyteller that you are and see today. It made this podcast. It made me understand how to work with nature and how to work with others, how to do conflict resolution. And all of that has made me a more generous man. Realizing that I'm not going to my grave with my money. I'm not going to my grave with my memories or all the things that I've accumulated. I'm going to my grave with a legacy. And that legacy for me is something that I just want to leave this place better than I found it. I want to take that carbon footprint that, if everyone lived like me, we would need 5 planets, and shrink that down to another scale. I want to do my part in building a world that I wish I could live in, the world that I know is possible in my heart, as somebody like Charles Eisenstein would say, which was a book that very much informed us. And the principles of things like the gift economy and sharing and building an economy, I think are playing out more and more and more. The technology of electric vehicles, of solar panels, and a generation of regenerative agriculture and sourcing materials and inputs from closer to home as we see prices of wood and everything skyrocketing at this day and age in 2021. All of those principles are starting to go in the direction of what I knew was happening 9 years ago. And I still know is happening today. And so my superpower is to understand and see the macro trends, and in the micro, learn how to be more generous. Learn how to give and to trust, how to invest in community, invest in relationships. This project has cracked me open and broken me down so many times. I've watched trees get bulldozed that we planted. I've watched trees die through floods or all kinds of things. I've watched buildings we built get flooded. I've watched myself and others make so many mistakes. We've had vandals. We've had people call us Nazis. We've been called a cult. We've been called everything you can name of. And it's none of that. But maybe it is to them. And I respect that. But for me, this is a move in the right direction. A move in a direction that I know is important to me and in part of my mission. And so telling these stories and making this podcast and even doing all of this stuff, it's difficult to do alone. But there are things that motivated me in this direction. And part of those are community-based, and part of those are financially based, so that I can find a way to continuously invest in this and do that perpetually, just like we would in permaculture. How can I turn the ecosystem and the spend or the burn of what I'm creating? How can I take life and death and allow that cycle to endlessly be a loop? How can I find that abundance within myself, my business as an entrepreneur, as a storyteller, as somebody who's creating, and create for more than me, but for everyone around me? And so personally, I want to create 150 jobs. or 149 with one for me. And that's challenging. I don't know if you've ever an entrepreneur, if you've ever created or hired anyone or worked with people, and to do that in a way where you're trying to evoke the artistry out of people, not just hiring them for what they can do or what their job title is on LinkedIn, but instead hiring them for what they actually really want to do, which tends to be much more in line with freedom, financial freedom, but also kind of emotional freedom and kind of the expression of what actually a good friend of mine, Ryan Schwartz, would call full expression, the full expression of their gifts. That's difficult. That requires mentorship. That requires space and time. That requires me to be the teacher and the student. And that's a forever process. There's no destination to this process. But there are some check marks along the way. And so with that said, I'm going to move into the segment here that is designed to express to you the ROI side of the dollars and cents of why I would retire. I'm in the process of retiring to some degree from the world of marketing, from running a marketing agency, or multiple marketing agencies, in fact, focused on web design development and social media management, creation, content creation, growth hacking, influencer marketing, like all of the things. Literally anything you could do online, we did it, and I built teams that did it. Scaling messages to millions and millions of people, building brands, launching Kickstarters or crowdfunding campaigns, doing #1 best-selling books, or you name it. We were doing it. And I'm still doing it. I still have a team behind me doing it to some degree, but now I'm stepping away more and more and more because there was bets that I was making long-term that made me an investor in 2012, that now in 2021, I get to start to see the fruits of the seeds that I planted. So I'm going to go over 5 reasons why I decided to invest in a farm. 5 reasons why I recognize the power of what this is going to look like and how I could retire by the age of 35. I'm currently 32, going to be 33 this year. So take a quick sip of water. And I'll get into the first one, which is real estate. There is nothing that is making more real estate on this green earth. In fact, if anything, we're probably losing real estate because our ice caps are melting and the coastline is going to rise. Real estate is the fundamental wealth generator of our time. Everything comes from the land at the end of the day. Everything we see here, everything I'm touching or using, all the metal, all the food that I eat, everything I ingest, everything that is being created in any way, shape, or form comes from the land. And it should be of no surprise to you that farming is about land. But farming isn't really about what you create with the land. It's also about the value of the land. Most farmers tend to retire by selling the farm or giving the farm away to their family. And back in the day, they would just stay at the farm and their family would just take over and keep running the farm. But in modern days, where kids have gone off to, university and gone and gotten their own careers or generally stepped away from the farm. Now I think it's only 2% of people actually create 100% of the world's food or are farmers. And that's a smaller and smaller number, but that's wild to think about because there's very few people in like Canada or North America. And it's a lot of people maybe in, second and third world countries. I hate calling them that, but that's where a lot of our food comes from. With cheap labor and then shipped on, containers all around the globe. Well, most of the ROI that a farmer will make and how they retire is tending to sell the farm. The value is in the soil itself. But to me, being 20 minutes outside of downtown Montreal, Valhalla, the farm, is so damn close to the city that I knew the city was going to expand in my direction. And I knew that particularly on the South Shore, where we are, there was going to be a real estate boom. We were eventually going to replace the Champlain Bridge, which happened. We were eventually going to build an exit going to our farm, which is one of the second reasons I thought this farm was going to grow, was that the area itself was going to develop. And that prices of land were going to continue to skyrocket, and particularly land, because there's not more and more of it, particularly close to major city centers. So if you can take a giant chunk of farm and turn it into homesteads, meaning a balance between real estate, people living in a house, ideally off-grid, ideally green, ideally all those different things. And I say off-grid, connected to the internet, connected to the life, but well water, producing its own electricity, producing its own food, doing those kinds of things, taking into account for some of its inputs and its needs. And I looked at land right nearby, and I looked at residential land, and I thought, wow, residential land is like minimum 10x the price of agricultural land. And yet they're one next to the other. They're basically the exact same thing. The only gap is this kind of red tape, the laws around building on agricultural land and not building on agricultural land, or what you can or can't do. Now, what I love about agricultural land is that you can basically build anything as a farmer. Now, to be a farmer in Quebec, you have to have $5,000 of revenue a year. $5,000 of revenue. Well, guess what? Year one, I walk out there, plant a tree, take an apple from that tree, sell it from me, Mark Angelo, the farmer, to WSB Media. Why? Simply because I was telling you about earlier, the organization, and I make $5,000 of revenue, and now I become a farmer. By becoming a farmer, I register to get a NIM and all these other things. I get to remove or lower the tax burden, because as a non-organic farm, you can get 70% off your taxes if you register your farm, 85% off if you are organic, certified organic farm. So I can lower my tax, lower my holding costs of real estate, and I can buy real estate in a way that is massive chunks, but that I know, even if I do nothing, will eventually become the city in and of itself. Now, part of me is sad about that, but the part of me that's an entrepreneur sees that as a massive opportunity. Land that's 10x or more, and in my case more because of the size of the land that my father and I bought together. The value, I realized that the city was going to expand massively and that those prices were going to skyrocket. Now, I couldn't have been more right. Paid 17 cents a square foot for the land that I'm on. Next door, if I had to buy the land next door, I'd probably say pay $17. That is 100x the price per square foot. Now, it might be a little bit less in certain cases, like maybe $10 or whatever a square foot, because you have to buy 2 acres of land together, right? But you're going to pay a chunk of money, hundreds and thousands of dollars for a plot of land the way that this house is going to be built on. And so the real estate opportunity that poses is very, very, very interesting. And as a farmer, I can build a bunch of farm buildings, barns or solar shed or greenhouses or whatever. And that's great. There's some restrictions, some things, and you figure that out. But you can't build a house unless you become a full-time farmer. So Mark Angelo, me, I'm a farmer. That's what I do full-time. It's what I file my taxes on. And my company, well, that operates the agencies and the consulting businesses and all the other things, the storytelling expenses, everything to do with storytelling, which is part of farming. In my opinion, it should be considered part of farming because I'm telling stories for the farm and you're listening to one right now. But it's not seen that way in the eyes of traditional farming infrastructure and being a full-time farmer. So me, the individual, is a full-time farmer. That's what I do. I go there multiple days a week, and I'm managing the farm and all the paperwork of the farm the other days of the week. Okay? But on the side, I'm also running the marketing agency and also doing consulting and also doing the videography and creating content because that's also part of the farm and building the brand of the farm. It's necessary that I had to have this two-headed monster. But it's great for me from a tax perspective to be a farmer because I can pay lower taxes, like I said, on the land, but also in life. I get better interest rates. I get better insurance. I can be part of a union. I can get access to all these different things as a farmer. It's a life hack, and it's also an essential worker life hack, which is now a thing in 2020 and 2021, where I get exemptions and a bunch of different things. And so by being a farmer, being a full-time farmer, I can actually build my house as a full-time farmer in the house of any employee or family member that's living with me. So let's say I had kids and the kids want to live on the farm, I could build their house. Or have full-time workers and they need to work at the farm and they live far away, but they need to be here, I can build their house. And so scaling and building a community from us is actually scaling the farm. As we scale the farm, we're going to create more employment, we can create more families, more whatever, more life, more space, and we can build the farm towards this 150-person community goal. And with full respect, full honor of actually it being a farm. I really want to grow food. We are growing food. We have planted 29,500 garlic this year, for example. Right? And we're planning on doubling that, or if not tripling that, because every garlic creates 3 or 4 garlic bulbs, which I don't know.
I was going to make an Italian joke, but I decided not to.
Yeah. I mean, look, we're trying to keep the vampires away. We're trying to keep the vampires away, all right? Get away from my blood. That's a very interesting joke in 2021. I won't go down that rabbit hole. But long story short, by buying farmland and actually becoming a farmer, essentially running revenue through you, even if you hired people to run revenue through you and then you become a full-time farmer, you can buy much cheaper land than if you were buying residential land. So yeah, I could spend $500,000 buying a condo, or I could spend $500,000 buying a giant farm, and essentially I can come out with way more opportunity in the farm if I'm willing to play the long-term game. Because today, the condo, I can get in and move in with some partner or rent it out or do whatever thing. Whereas a farm has holding costs and development costs and time. But the return on that land, like if I built a house, for example, like I'm planning on building a community house, but I'm also building my house where I'm going to live and work from the farm and grow vegetables with lights and stuff so that we can start the seasons earlier and grow the farm. And host events and community gatherings and co-op members that are coming together, which I'll get to in a second. All of that is part of what I can see to be a giant opportunity financially. It is massive, the gains that you can make on this. And farmland is skyrocketing in value, particularly here in Canada, because Chinese people are buying up the farm. And I say Chinese people because people from China are buying land in Canada hand over fist. And the same is happening in America and all over the globe. They're investing in farms. And the price of farms are going up, but the average age of a farmer is also going up. I think it's like 80% of farmers are over the age of 55. Or like 85% or whatever it is over the age of 45. So most people who are farming are of the older generation. And so less and less people are going to be involved in farming. And the prices of farms are going to continue to rise because they need to, because they're not going to sell the farm to you because that's how they're going to retire. They need the money to retire, and life is expensive, so they have to sell it for more and more money. And there's less and less land, particularly near city centers. And less land where they can build houses without having to demolish another thing, blah, 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 blah. So farmland and homesteading and this kind of balance where I see the merger of city life and, let's say, normal life, quote unquote, suburban life, if you want to see it that way, and farm life get to mix and merge. I don't think they should be exclusive. I think the way that we have our system is broken. That we have to remove the red tape of what it takes and what it means to be a farmer. We should have more chickens in people's backyards. We should be growing fruit trees in the mediums between highways or local roads. We should be merging with nature and integrating with farms, not just trying to protect farmland, but then losing that war because there's more and more condos and more housing needs. Right? You're selling a house today, freaking the prices are skyrocketing. The prices of wood are skyrocketing. Everything's skyrocketing. Real estate is skyrocketing, particularly here in Canada, but also elsewhere. It's not like it's getting better in Colorado. It's going nuts. And so the real estate component of it and the value that creates is massive, and that's one of the reasons why I would do it. The second is because of the proximity to the city and what that creates. I love the fact that the city was so close, but that it could still be off-grid. No city water, no city sewer system, so you don't have to have high taxes. We're providing all our own services, right? We're going to get Starlink satellite internet, which I'll get wired internet and stuff too. Yes, we're going to bring hydroelectricity, or meaning, traditional power, but we also have a bunch of solar panels. So I'm planning on doing both, a mix between grid and off, having both systems be available. And having that work for us, because as we generate electricity, I can sell it back to the grid or lower my costs of the grid. And so building near a city, but just outside of the zones of the service of the city, but also having and recognizing that between where the farm is, right, or the city is, let's say, and where the biggest kind of the real estate boom, which is called 10-30, it's where the 10 meets the 30 in Montreal, that area was going to have a train. I knew there was eventually going to be kind of common infrastructure or common transportation, right? Like buses or trains or whatever it was, of metro, that was going to go there. And that happened. And between there and the next exit on the highway, there's 10 kilometers of highway, or whatever that is, like 5 miles, 6 miles or whatever it is, 6 or 7 miles of highway with nothing, no exits. And so I knew on looking at the map, oh, they're going to make an exit right here, right where the overpass is. And I could see it. Like I could literally look at Google Earth and see the future. And I'm not just envisioning it as, like, I could literally see that, like, they had planned the on-ramp, but they just never built it. Like, they planned the on and off ramp. Like, I could see the idea of that. So that was another reason I thought this was valuable. Now, some of these others are very interesting in nature. Like, the third reason is I understood at the time cannabis was illegal and smoking weed was an illegal thing, that I could do an offensible thing. Now it's an essential service. Go figure me that, ladies and gentlemen. And now it's an essential service that the government sells you. Wow. Isn't that interesting? Big business. Big business. Like in alcohol, they have a monopoly on that business. Now, companies can make money off of it nonetheless. Farmers can still make money off of it. But here's the thing. I knew that hemp and cannabis, the legalization of that was going to be huge. I also understood that you can get tags in particular ways. And if we were a co-op, every person can have recreational amounts and get tags for the recreational amounts, plus medicinal amounts, plus all these other different things. Now, I see that as a currency. I see this as a way of regenerating the soil when it comes to hemp, using the same equipment of GMO corn and transferring GMO corn and soya fields into hemp fields. That's a way of building hempcrete and a bunch of other things that are all hippies love to talk about. I say hippies just to not be facetious or mean about it, just to say that these are topics that I'm not going to go into at this moment. But I knew that boom was coming to Canada. And I knew that if I had a farm, I can take advantage of that. So that was another reason. Part of what we're learning to do now. Part of what we're talking and in conversations about making today. And so that started to come online. And then I started to think about what other components are going to come in the future, right? What other pieces of the puzzle were going to play out? And two things come to mind. The first is rising food prices. If a bunch of older farmers are going to start to retire, and there's going to be more and more mouths to feed, and they're going to be eating more and more because we have an obesity problem in the world, and they want more and more delicacies, but they're also this movement of people wanting more and more healthy food, more and more organic food, more and more food locally sourced, then I knew the price of food was also going to be a massive impact, and that's element number 4. The price of food is going to skyrocket. In fact, we are not paying the full value cost. I'm not just talking about carbon footprint, but I'll get to that in a second. We are not paying the full cost of our food when we're buying steak or chicken or anything, really. I don't think we're truly accounting for the real cost of what it takes to grow food at this moment. We're subsidized by the fact that there's cheap labor and food coming from all over the globe. But what happens when the Suez Canal gets blocked or other, wars break out? What happens when you want locally sourced food, or the food prices now have to start paying the carbon taxes of the length and distance your food is coming from? What happens when certain things like bananas go extinct? Because bananas are going extinct. Did you know that?
No.
Bananas are going extinct, yeah.
I had one this morning that was delicious. I'm really sad.
You're going to be real sad if bananas go extinct, right? I mean, no, for real. Like, genetics are going extinct. Bananas, for example, the genetic of bananas are going extinct now. Is there to say that we're not going to have another genetic of bananas? No, we'll probably figure it out, right? Just like we GMO'd and figured out everything else. But I understood that the price of food was going to rise, and that the further you were from a city, or the closer you were to a city, that meant an opportunity. That if I could grow this food very close to a city, I can remove the middleman, which is the market, out of the equation. I can sell directly to people, and technology would enable that in many different ways. Technology would enhance my ability to scale the farm, to scale food, and it would build a direct connection customer base, not only within our community, but around our community, where we can sell that food at the highest margins and the highest opportunities. Plus, we can transform that food. We can eventually host a restaurant or host dinners. We can host private gatherings. We can do weddings or events. Like, I knew that I could capitalize and help capitalize with the farmers that are getting involved and that are involved in the project right now in that way. And all of that in a landscape where global warming and cap and trade systems and carbon taxes systems were going to come into play. And that's element number 5. See, when I planted that fruit tree 9 years ago in the middle of a GMO corn and soy field, I did not necessarily think about this fully, but it started to occur to me over time that the price of that fruit tree was a price today that over time is going to rise because there's less and less farmers growing the fruit trees, less and less people supplying the garden centers, and more people interested in fruit trees and in planting food forests in their backyard, getting involved in sustainability or all those different components, right? And so as that trend was going to continue growing, I also knew the trend of carbon taxes was going to become a thing, that your life and your consumption was going to be taxed. And if you lived in a everyday person life, if you were one of those people that it took 4.1 planets or 5 planets to survive, you're going to have to start paying the full price of your carbon footprint. And for me, buying the tree, let's say it costs $20 to buy a 2-year-old tree or $25 to buy a 2-year-old tree, roughly, depending, fruit tree specifically. I can plant that tree and I can make money off of selling the fruits of that tree, but that's going to take time. It's going to take probably 7 years, 9 years before you get the first fruits from that tree. And then you have to pick it, pluck it, clean it, sell it, market it, blah, 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 blah. But the value of a tree in carbon footprint, well, a carbon ton today in Canada is about $30 a carbon ton. But by 2030, we're expecting that to go to I think it was $120, $130 a carbon ton, or $170 even a carbon ton. So how much does a fruit tree sequester in carbon in its lifetime? And the average answer that I can find is that over 40 years, it'll sequester at least 1 carbon ton. So in 40 years, it's going to pay $170 or $170 in 2030 money, but in 40 years from, let's say, the day I planted it, it's going to pay like, I don't know, maybe $500 for a tree that I paid $20 for now. Now, yes, inflation and all those different things, but I also have the tree. I have the beauty of the tree. I have the fruits the tree are going to produce. And I have the carbon tax credits that I'm going to collect from people like you. And I say like you because I know you're not offsetting your 100% of your carbon footprint. So you're going to pay that cap and trade tax. And in fact, if you're in Canada, you already are with your gas guzzler car, right? There's already a carbon tax on the gas you're buying. That's why gas prices are going to go up, and it's going to keep going up. So then you're going to say, but Mark, I'm going to buy Tesla because I'm like that. Cool, I get it. But there's going to be carbon tax credits short term on the fact you're switching over to electric, but over time, there's still carbon involved in making that car. There's carbon involved in everything you do. So if you can lower your carbon footprint by growing your own food, collecting your own water, making your own power, you can start avoiding expenses, keeping that money in your pocket, which is the lifeblood of business, ladies and gentlemen, cash flow. And you can use that cash flow and the time value of that cash flow. I studied finance in university, even though I hated it. Well, that time value of money is hugely impactful and important to your wealth. So investing in a farm is the fastest way for it to grow in real estate, the fastest way for you to capitalize on trends in the marketplace and trends in the global outlaying of city and the growth of a city, trends of, decriminalization of, cannabis or let's say psychedelic mushrooms or those kinds of things, all of which are coming or have happened. Trends in growing food prices and the boho chic, interesting, cool, hipster labels and locally grown, organic, everything, vegan option, gluten-free, and carbon taxes. I think it is single-handedly one of the best investments for a person to make, for a young family to make. It's the cheapest way you can build your house. It's the fastest way and the fastest path for you to build generational wealth, ladies and gentlemen. Generational wealth. Wealth that you can transfer over to other people. And by building the houses of other people and financing it in those ways, like I'm planning on doing, which is I'm going to build my house cash on the farm. Then I'm going to go and reevaluate the land from the bank or from whatever, a family wealth fund or whatever, a bank basically. And I'm going to say, how much is this land worth now when I built this house? And I paid for it cash and I hired my whole community to build with me with good deals because they know me and I know them. And I build it with them too, physically. let me reevaluate this house and reevaluate the value of the land that now went from agricultural to agricultural and residential. What's the price of that? What's the comparables on the market of that? And the answer is there's not that many comparables. And those who want this lifestyle specifically, and I say that word very impactfully and very importantly, those who want this lifestyle will pay top dollar for it. And so the value of this property that I think I'm going to spend, let's say, $700,000 or $750,000 building a house, depending on the price of wood at this point, right? But that house is going to be worth $2 million based on local comparables. So I'll be able to refinance 100% of the money that I put into the house and then use that to continuously grow the farm, to continuously invest in the next farmers and a group of people that are helping grow the farm in every single way, turning it into the paradise, the abundance that I know I want in my life. And I know I can complete this entire project by the time I'm 35. And with that, I know I can retire on that money. Now, I'm not going to retire, but I am definitely going to retire from marketing. In fact, I already have. I've handed off the agencies to other people. I've let the clients go to other people who I've worked with and trained and mentored and helped out. People who I met with teams and people who I still, in my consulting work as a storyteller and as helping people like you build your brand, who I still reference and who I still maybe get a kickback from or, hire to do my own marketing, my own brand building and growth. But I'm retiring from that more and more so that I could do this. And in that house, there's going to be a beautiful podcast studio, even better than this one. It's going to have multiple sets, and it's going to be set up. You flick on the lights just like here, and you get ready because you can go multi-camera, right? You can bring in people like Kyler here who can make that happen. And so I understand that this was an investment in my future, but I was willing to play the game of saying, where do I want to be in like 10, 15 years? Where do I want to be like later? And how do I do that now in my youth, in my 20s and 30s? How do I invest in that in ways that are smart? And so those are those 5 reasons. And that's, I don't know if that doesn't compel you to invest in a farm, I don't know what will. But I definitely compel you to invest in fruit trees or trees in general. I think you should invest in hard assets and things that are going to inflate with value and time because we're printing more and more money. And that money is devaluating your currency. And more, these are taxes that are coming your way. And as a farmer, that is the best way you can move through these taxes and gain cheap access to money and large-scale loans because farmers need large-scale farm equipment loans and stuff like that too. So pardon the interruption. We had a little technical difficulty. The iPad got a little full there. But all that to say, invest in a farm. Understand that there's tax benefits for so many different reasons. There's all kinds of ways you can earn revenue as a farmer, build your wealth, like I said, generational wealth in deep and powerful ways. And with that said, I think that this farm at the end of the day is about membership, which brings me to my last segment of this podcast, which is all about membership. It's about people like you, right? I spoke about Dunbar's number, scaling a 150-person community. I spoke about freedom culture and empowering your gifts and your unique offerings to the community. And what I spoke about is a lot of commonality, common infrastructure and things like that. But we need members to join. And that's why we created the Valhalla Co-op. So bring up the website here. We're going to bring up this with the movie magic. We're going to put me in the little corner on the bottom here. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the farm. Now, the farm itself is on 80 acres, and it's a community space that we will never, or myself will never be able to fully control. I will never be able to grow all of this food and all of this land and take control of all of this place. In fact, everything you're seeing here on the screen, like all of this space, that's about 2.5 acres out of 80 plus that we have. Some of it's forested, some of it's going to be housing or homestead with farms in the back. But this is the common place. This is kind of our experimental, our more public-facing component of the farm, where there's going to be a community house and we're going to host gatherings, and everything can happen, whether that be private dinners, whether that be you making products that we sell at the farm. Like we have coffee that's being imported from Guatemala or cacao. We have people who are going to be making gourmet popsicles, and we're going to be selling that. We're going to be doing all kinds of, we're growing, food and garlic and eggs and CSA baskets. We're doing microgreens and all kinds of stuff. And so whatever it is that you want to bring to the table, whether that be directly to the farm, or maybe you're a videographer like Kyler, who's producing the podcast, and you can make videos for the farm. Maybe a social media manager or a copywriter, an accountant. All of your skills are needed. But this farm needs members. And our members, the way our farm works is that we're a co-op, right? So our mission is to transform this 80-acre farm through the power of regenerative agriculture and storytelling to build a thriving, all-natural ecosystem that inspires community of passionate agricultural producers and entrepreneurs to come together and build the farm of the future. We're building community, we're regenerating the soil, we're growing and preparing mouthwatering food, like I said, and we're sharing to inspire. So our philosophy, permaculture, natural building, nonviolent communication, sociocracy, we're scaling a way that people can come together. Now, for whatever reason, on my thing, it's not showing up. It is our Instagram feed, and you can find our details and information there, okay? But the co-op, the way it works is that you apply to join, and you apply to bring your ideas to the farm, right? You can make your projects come to life. So if you want to do that, you hit apply and you let us know what those projects are, what they require, what kind of investments they need, what investments you're going to make, what investments you need to make for us, what infrastructure you need, right? Maybe you need a yoga deck for space. Maybe you need power to run something. Maybe you need shovels or wheelbarrows because you want to plant an herb garden. We have all of those things, but we fund those things through myself, the generosity of myself, the generosity of many people, through volunteers who come all the time and what we would call support members who just join the farm and donate to the farm, but also become members of the farm, therefore owners of the farm business specifically, right? Where the revenue is all being sold, we can help sell your products that you leave on for us, either on consignment or that we buy from you, products that you make that you want to sell at the farm, whether you sell them online or your own or on Etsy or whatever. We can support all of your entrepreneurial ventures, but we need people to join in as members. So there's 3 types of members. Workers, people who work and get paid by the farm to work there full-time or part-time. What I think is a very more interesting farm membership is the producers. Somebody who has an entrepreneurial skill set wants to join the community, provide that service for the community in a sense, but also sell that service or the products that they create in that community. So let's say you want to start a small garlic business or a small beekeeping business like we have, right? Somebody on our farm, one of our members is a producer member. He takes care of the bees. He produces the honey. He sells the honey. He pays his membership fees, $50 a month, super reasonable, plus tax, $600 a year. And then he gets to use the land, and his bees get to go into all the flowers. But guess what? Our flowers and all our fruit trees, they get pollinated that way too. And so the ecosystem grows. And then we also have support members, people who just love it. People who want to come and use our future hot tub or sauna that we're building this year. People want to use our kitchen. People just want to come up on a Friday or Saturday because I go every single Friday or Saturday and they want to just be a part of the community. People want essential worker papers because, hey, maybe you're coming out to help us at the farm, or you're going to get cardboard, or you're helping us produce labels for our eggs, or you're washing the eggs with us. There's different ways that you can get involved at the scale that you want to get involved in. And I'm not trying to convince you of these things. Our community is thriving. There's so many people showing up every single week. I mean, in fact, we've had our best season opener ever. This was our best April. We're now in the early May. It's the best ever we've ever gone down. We're producing more food. We're growing more stuff. We're getting more projects done. We're planting more. We're taking more control of the farm every single day. And more people are getting involved with so many different talents. Like there was a private chef who was there yesterday who was like, hey, I want to come and do meals with you. We've done farm table dinners we have pictures of. This picture that I took was from a farm table dinner. We had live music and interesting things. And so there's so many benefits. Access to community gardens, invitations, and discounts on any of our gatherings or workshops. I mean, you'll even get Superhero Academy, the Passion to Profit course, totally for free in our joining as a member. So we can teach you, like me, can teach you the entrepreneurial skill sets that you need to turn your passions into your life, into your business, the thing that pays your bills. So in getting involved in this farm is so much more than anything else. It's not like a gym membership. It's not like a sauna membership or a spa membership. It's like all of those things combined, mixed with people who are incredibly talented, meeting people on a regular basis that are the probable clients that are going to buy your products or services. They're the type of people who are going to support you. They're the type of people who can help you make those projects come to life. I'm that type of person. And there's even potential financing or opportunities in that front too. Convince me that this needs to happen right away, I'll find a way to make it happen financially, right? Like we're building our coffee shop because we want to serve coffee to people. We want to scale generosity for people who come and give time and energy to the project. I want to hand out free coffees. I want to hand out free popsicles. I want to hand a beer to somebody who comes and pickaxes or shovels with us or helps us build a swale or plant a fruit tree. I want to have as much stuff as possible for you to do and you to get involved in. But for that to happen, we need you to be a member. For you to do a project, we need you to be a member because that's a small contribution that you make, but it helps pay the infrastructure, the minimum infrastructure and the minimum talent and worker members that we need to actually run the farm effectively. Now, I fully expect that there's way more investment to be made. That's not going to be enough, right? But our goal is to get to that 150-person number. We want to scale there slowly and get there. This year, we're looking to get to 50 members. I say this year, 2021, we're looking to get to 50 members because we really think that that's where the scale of our community is going to generate itself fully. Like that's where the entire ecosystem will fund itself and grow itself, and the amount of projects and things will just continuously flourish on the farm. Now, that means there's still 100 other people that are going to be able to join, 100 other talents that we're going to be able to join. We're very hand-selecting those people based on their values, based on their commitment, based on the level of ownership and responsibility and integrity that they have, how much they resonate with us as a community, but also with our ideals, right? Our vibe. And so we're looking for you to bring your talent and to get involved. And whether that just means that you want to show up on a Saturday and have a place to drink a beer and make some homemade pizza in our pizza oven, great. That's perfect too. But if you want to get involved in planting, you're a nutritionist, you want to, make some tinctures, sell your products wholesale or to retail to some of the people, you want support in getting these products into other places. I mean, all of this stuff happens here. And there's so many people looking for your talent and for you to join, and they're found at this farm, and many, 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 many faces and people are rolling through. We have a presence online. We're planning on scaling and getting back into the things that we did well early on, like sharing on social media and to our networks, with thousands of followers on multiple different platforms. We're planning on scaling ways that we can bring together people to function as a real community. And so we need your input. We need your talent and your ideas and your energy. Your energy is what fuels me. What makes me happy at the farm? Because I go there, I just see work. What makes me happy is like this weekend, we planted 100 blueberries. I only planted one of those. We planted 50 flowers. I only planted none of those. I made the holes, right? I got them. I went to the garden center, paid for them, and did a bunch of stuff. I had a role, but I understand my role in the ecosystem, which is to build the ecosystem to begin with, to understand and help finance these things and take on some of the responsibilities on that front, legal, financial, and storytelling fronts. And yes, physical, right? Physically, I'm there and I'm physically operating the farm. I'm physically planting. I'm physically selling food. I'm physically cleaning up and washing the plates and shutting it all down and doing all the stuff. I'm managing this website that's designed and managed by my, web developer that I work with on Superhero Academy, for example. So, whose name is Paul and is doing a great job. So we're doing all of these things and we're scaling our land to accommodate for all of these different projects, right? We see ourselves as a bridge between worlds. We see ourselves going in so many different directions, and we have so much potential and so much space that we need your input because we can't take it all on our own, and we are getting better and better and better at it, but I can tell you there's so much more to do. So yes, we're operating in the principles of market gardening, which is producing food for the markets. We're also operating principles of permaculture, soil restoration, and growing more like a food forest. We're taking care of animals in an all-natural way. Everything's organic, everything we do. We're not certified organic because we don't care to be, and that's a process that we're not necessarily looking to do at this moment, unless we had people like you helping us do that process, maybe. We're doing things like beekeeping and so much more. And, of course, you can visit at any one moment, right? You can come, bring your farm shoes and your farm attire, your gloves, your hat, your sunscreen, whatever you feel you need, water, and show up. And that doesn't mean you're going to be shoveling and pickaxing. You're most likely going to be probably eating food and chatting with amazing people. You're going to meet amazing people. You're going to learn about amazing things. We're having workshops and doing all kinds of different ceremonies and ideas flowing each and every week. And so we're building that infrastructure now. And honestly, it's too much for me to do. It's already overwhelming. It sometimes is crippling even. But as we gain time and energy, we are doing more and more and more, and we want to do more and more and more to scale this community in this way. And with that, I hope that you come to visit our website. I hope you hit apply. I hope you let us know what kind of projects and how you want to get involved. I hope that this inspires you as a gateway into your own version of a sustainable life, your own version of building a farm, your own version of building a homestead, your own version of building community, and your own version of building a business. And I really, really hope that you see and feel the heartbeat and the passion, not only from me, but from many who are involved. I hope that you get to witness the magic that this farm is and why it has inspired so much generosity in me, and why it's changed me, why it's made me a more humble servant to the world around me, why it's made me a better entrepreneur, a better manager, a better mentor, and a better student. I am deeply moved by the people who come to the farm. I'm deeply moved by the people who look to get involved. I'm deeply moved by the people who are willing to play a role in their own lives in their own way and bring their own freedom culture to the table. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, the links are down below. You know where the links are. In fact, I don't even know why I said that. Links are below. The links are always where they always are. But my heart, my soul, my brain, they're all combining, connecting. I really would love to see your faces, your boot on the ground. And even if you're abroad, we're accepting members who can support us in so many different ways and so many different channels and accesses and capacities. So please let us know how we can support you, how we can co-create with you. And I cannot wait to build the real world Valhalla alongside you. I'll see you in the next episode, ladies and gents. Bye.